Hey, welcome back to Homeschool Wherever. My name is Carmen Sognonvi. Are you considering homeschooling your kids, or have you just started homeschooling them recently? Well, in this video, my friend Valerie and I are going to share some strategies and tips and techniques that are going to make those first few months of homeschooling much easier and a lot more enjoyable. We decided to team up to collab on this video because I am a brand new homeschooler and Valerie has been doing it for 9+ years. So you're going to be able to hear from both perspectives. You'll hear from me, who is a new homeschooler who is currently in the midst of going through the challenge of figuring this all out for the first time. And you'll also hear from Valerie, who's a more seasoned homeschooler. She's already gone through a lot of the ups and downs, and so she has the benefit of hindsight. If you're new to this channel, we are a multiracial secular family living in New York City, and we're homeschooling for the first time this year. We have two daughters, Sean and Ella. Sean is in 6th grade and Ella is in 3rd grade. We're really passionate about using travel to bring our homeschooling lessons to life. And this channel is all about documenting our homeschooling journey. So if that sounds of interest to you, I hope that you'll subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. We're also full-time family travel creators. So if you want to see that side of our lives, check out our travel channel at Top Flight Family. Now, before we launch into our 10 tips, let me tell you a little bit about Valerie first. Valerie has a blended family and a special needs family. She has 5 kids whom she homeschools, and 3 of her kids are under the age of 4, so she definitely has her hands full. On her channel, Our Homeschool Castle, you'll find videos on special needs homeschooling, how to co-parent and homeschool, what to do with toddlers while homeschooling older kids. You'll find healthy family meal ideas, large family living tips, and much more. I'm going to link her channel below, so make sure you check her out. So tip number 1 is to deschool for as long as you can. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of deschooling, it essentially refers to the transition of going from a traditional school to a homeschool. I actually have a whole video about deschooling, so I'm going to link that down below in case you want to dig into this a little further. But if you're planning to homeschool your kids, it is highly recommended that you spend a period of time deschooling, which means that you actually take a complete break from doing anything academic. And the reason for that is both you as the parent and your kids are going to need some time to sort of almost deprogram yourselves from the way that traditional school is done. If you jump right from traditional school into homeschooling, you're going to be bringing a lot of that baggage along with you, which doesn't make for the best start for homeschooling. Now, there is a rule of thumb out there that recommends that families spend 1 month deschooling for every year that they've spent in traditional school. Now, if you have the bandwidth to do this, definitely go for it. In our case, my oldest daughter has been in traditional school for 6 years, and I didn't really feel comfortable deschooling for a whole 6 months. So we ended up deschooling for 2 months, and I think it went pretty well. So again, if you want some ideas for exactly what to do during this deschooling phase, check out that video about deschooling and you'll get all the details.
Number 2, find a homeschool group online. This is gold. When I first started homeschooling, I had no clue what I was doing, even though I had done it years before when I was a nanny. But now we have the world at our fingertips, and you can find so many people out there who do exactly what you're doing. And it's really great to find community, not just for your kids, like finding friends and activities to go to. There's all sorts of homeschooling activities out there, or co-ops, but also for you, for moms. Moms also need those resources and community, and it feels good to talk to people who are homeschoolers, who get what you're doing. Also, when you find groups online, like on Facebook or Yahoo groups or wherever, even Instagram, you find out all the legal stuff that's specific to your state. So it's good to find a local group. And sometimes you can get really, really fine-tuned. And I have found groups that are particular to my area for families who have special needs kids. Or there's one that's like homeschooling littles, and it's a toddlers group, which you're going to homeschool when they get bigger. So it's good to kind of create that community now. Anyways, just look it up, look up your state, look up homeschoolers, look up secular, whatever it is that is specific to you, and you'll be surprised at how many people there are out there to find.
Now, tip number 3 is don't rush to buy all the curricula. Now, I'm definitely a fan of using curriculum, especially for certain subjects. It can be really helpful to have a roadmap that someone who knows the subject better than you has kind of laid out and you just follow along. The problem with curriculum, though, is that there's really no way to tell whether it's a good fit for your family until you've bought it and until you've started using it. Now, yes, a lot of curriculum companies will have sample pages on their site. You may even be able to download like the first 20% of the book. And that definitely is helpful to give you a feel for what the style is like, what the writing is like, what the assignments are like. But even with that, even if you read through all of those sample pages, you download all of the sample worksheets and try them out, you really don't know if it's going to work until you start using it. And by then, you've already paid for it. So if you're brand new to homeschooling, don't be in too much of a rush to go out and buy all of these different curriculum topics all in one go. Start with just a handful. Just pick out some curriculum for the core subjects, so maybe language arts, maybe for math. Use them for a while, see how they work for you first, before you pile on all of these other subjects. I can tell you that in our situation, we're only about 6 weeks into homeschooling right now, and there's already 2 out of 5 curricula that we are probably going to be taking out of rotation. So luckily I didn't buy any more than that, so it's not a huge loss, but buying curriculum can add up, can get pretty expensive, so you don't want to rush into a bunch of purchases.
Number 4, don't be afraid to change course. If things aren't working for you, if you're not having fun, if your kids aren't having fun, then change it. Homeschooling, no matter if you're new at it or you've been around for a long time, it's always changing. People always talk about seasons, and it's true. It seems like every few months we're kind of reevaluating things and we're changing and tweaking and finding what works, because kids grow and they change. You grow and you change. When the way that you teach, the things that you guys are interested in could be something that's, even current to the times. Don't be afraid to drop curriculum if it's not working, or tweaking it if you like parts of it. It's forever flowing and changing, and just embrace it and understand everybody goes through this, and it is just part of it.
Tip number 5 is to slow down. When you first start homeschooling, there can be the sense of wanting to get a lot done. And part of it might be just enthusiasm that this is something new for your family, so you want to do it really well. And part of it may be anxiety on your part as the parent that, hey, I've taken my kid out of school. I want to make sure that we are on point academically, so let's get a lot of stuff done. Now, one thing you're probably going to realize after you've been doing this a little while is that it is much, much better to do a few things well each day than to try to cram in a bunch of stuff and none of it is being done very well. Related to this is something that I've had to wrap my brain around, which is that there is no rule that says you have to finish every single problem on every single worksheet or every single chapter of a curriculum. So for example, with math, we're using a curriculum called Beast Academy for both of my girls. We're actually using the same level book for both of them. And that's working well because the problems are kind of designed where there are some easy ones, and then there are some that are much more challenging and almost getting into sort of brain teaser territory. And for a while, it really felt like, oh, if we're not finishing every single page, then we're not doing this right. And I realized that that's not really the case, because as long as my kids can demonstrate that they grasp the concepts that are introduced in that particular chapter, for instance, it's not the end of the world if they don't finish every single problem in the set. So it takes a while to figure out what's the balance between a lot of practice, and then at what point does it just become busy work that doesn't really have that much value. So in general, slowing the pace is going to be really helpful in your homeschool.
Number 6 is to take a break. Right now, that's kind of what we're doing. It seems to be about a couple months in or a month and a half in, doing our curriculum, doing our schooling, getting in a groove and a routine, and then you're kind of bored of the routine. It's called burnout, and it happens to all of us. So what we do is we take a break from the curriculum, step back. We do like art projects. My daughter just got a needle felting kit, and we are just diving into that and taking like a whole day making animals. She made a fish and a porcupine. And then we're also doing a unit study that I wrote about women in punk rock. And we're learning about feminism and what women went through in the 60s and 70s. So it's just a change of pace. You're still learning, you're still doing things for your school, but you're just kind of taking a break from doing the normal routine. Also, it's a good time to step back and look at your curriculum and say, okay, I think we can maybe take this part out in the morning and just maybe do it all on Friday, or, something like that. It's just necessary. And for us, everybody's timing is probably different, but for us, it's about every month and a half.
Tip number 7 is that connection is key. One thing I've realized even in this early stage of homeschooling is that emotion and connection are everything. And that once your kids start feeling frustrated or upset, the learning just stops. So I think sometimes if you've come from a traditional schooling background, or you have that mentality of, no, we gotta tough things out, and it's all about overcoming obstacles and pushing through things. Yes, in certain situations that is valuable, but in a lot of situations when it comes to homeschooling, if your kid is at the point where they're crying and they don't want to do this, nothing is really getting absorbed at that point. So rather than forcing them to finish a page of problems, for instance, at that stage it may actually be much more productive to take a break, have some cuddles, just do whatever it makes sense to do in your family to start kind of regulating those emotions and kind of dialing things down and getting things back to a positive, good vibe. Also, now that you're stepping into a role as both a parent and an educator, it's especially important to make sure that the relationship between you and each of your kids is on really, really solid ground. So that's where the connection piece is really important as well.
Number 8, don't replicate public school. Public school and homeschool are two separate things. They are not alike in many, many ways. In public school, one of the ways is you're teaching, 20 to 30 kids. You're teaching to the masses. In homeschooling, it's more of a one-on-one education with your child. Even if you have multiple kids, you're still fine-tuning that education to them. You are working with them on their pain points, and you are helping them thrive with the things that they're really good and strong in. So it doesn't even look the same, even from that kind of perspective. So to try to get kids to sit down all day in a classroom type setting, maybe it works for your family, but I know it definitely doesn't work for mine. So we use our whole house as our homeschool, outside, our whole world, and we treat it as more of a bonding experience between, parents and children, and we learn with our kids.
Number 9, you'll find your own style. When you first start looking into homeschooling, it can be kind of overwhelming because you watch a bunch of YouTube videos, you read a bunch of blog posts, and you see that there's all these parents that are doing all the things. There's so many different approaches to homeschooling. There's Charlotte Mason, there's unschooling, there's classical. So first, take a deep breath. It's okay. Don't worry about all that stuff. Yes, it can be helpful to kind of get a general sense of what some other families do and find certain parts that you feel like would make sense for your household as well. But understand that at the end of the day, you're going to need to find your own style as a homeschool educator. So don't stress so much about all the terminology. Don't stress so much about all of the shiny new objects that everyone is into at the moment. At the end of the day, you have to find your own rhythm. You have to find the vibe and the style that works best for you and your kids. And that's really the most important thing. Now, that said, if you do want to learn what some of these common terms mean, like deschooling, unschooling, Charlotte Mason, all of these different approaches to homeschool, I have a whole series on my channel called Homeschooling Explained, where I get into all of that. So I'm going to link that playlist down below for you.
So number 10 is routines change. We co-parent with 2 other households with 2 of our girls. So sometimes they're with us, sometimes they're going to their other parents' house, and we need to change our routine, every few weeks. So what I've learned to do is to have the day before they leave a lighter school day, more of saying goodbye and hanging out. And then the same thing when they come back, letting them get reacquainted before we start doing school again. Otherwise, they're just gonna be crazy, and the little ones are gonna be like, why can't you play with me, you know, the whole time. And then when our girls are gone, I just kind of focus on the toddler schooling and the fun stuff that we do. So our routines change quite often. And even if you're not a parent that co-parents, you will have disruptions, like maybe somebody gets sick, or maybe family visits, or you might want to go travel someplace. So it's a constant juggle, but it's not a bad thing. Sometimes for kids and for grown-ups, it's hard to get used to a new routine, but it will happen. It's not anything that's so stressful, because that's the beauty of homeschool, is that you're in charge of the routine and you can change it when it's not working, or when there's something that changes in your life.
Okay, if you want to see how the first month of our homeschooling went, just check out that video right there. Thank you so much to Valerie for sharing all of your great tips with my audience. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Homeschool Wherever. Okay, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.